Welcome, everybody and anybody who has signed on and has registered for another live stream here today with Intelligent Construction Opportunities. I'm Stephanie Brown, and I'd like to welcome our guest for our continued series with GMS, Tommy Stanek. Welcome, Tommy. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me again, Stephanie. Thank you all for joining.
Indeed. Indeed. And so today we want to get into sort of the real purpose behind this series of live streams that we're doing. I met up with Tommy and he showed me the dynamic ways that Graceful Management System is going to be able to handle projects moving forward. But we're looking for beta testers, and in this case, specifically residential roofing contractors, to help to shape the tool called GMS, obviously the acronym for Graceful Management Systems, and what Tommy has planned for it. So maybe before we get into a little bit of this tech talk, you can share some of the, I'll say some highlights of recent with developing the Graceful Management Systems and where you're from and what you're all about.
Boy, that's a loaded question. As far as recent highlights, it's exciting to be working with a team that's developing cutting edge technology. You know, that if you're paying attention to the news, artificial intelligence is ushering in the fourth wave of the industrial revolution. So to get to be working intimately with teams that are developing that and overcoming challenges that previously have not been overcome with existing technology challenges. I don't think that there isn't a step that we take that isn't exciting every time we review it. But to backtrack a little bit on, what got me here and who I am is, it's really just this natural desire to optimize things. And it came as an entrepreneur early on. I kind of tripped and fell into sales, opened up a mortgage franchise, probably close to 30 years ago now. I got to date myself. What am I, 40? So we're going to say 20 years ago. And learning how to maximize everybody's time and effort, improve profits, decrease customer complaints, and improve, customer satisfaction and everybody's experience from start to finish has always been a natural passion of mine. And you can't do that just with the human element alone. Every job, and especially contractors can require tools. You really can't saw a board without a saw. And as time has allowed us, the saw has evolved, and now you can push a button and saw that board much faster. You can saw it with more specific accuracy. And that's exactly what we're doing on the technical side of this. So as far as some of the highlights that have really excited us more recently, it's probably going to have to do with data mining. And I know that sounds like a technical term, but what we're trying to do for construction contractors is give them access to their database in a tangible way. I've seen a lot of contractors when they're doing estimates, what they're doing is they're looking or trying to remember what projects kind of are similar in scope and in size. And if they can remember what those projects are, they're looking through their, profit and losses to identify what the costs were associated both in labor and materials, and use that information as a starting point to start estimating these other projects. And we now have dialed it in where you can start answering specifics to the project that's being estimated, or that somebody would like to know how much it would cost to produce it, how long would it take to produce it. And the GMS is able to mine your database, not for 1, 2, or 3, but every single project that matches that criteria. And let's just say that, as a general contractor, only a portion of that project that you produce matches this criteria. The GMS is able to identify that, use that information to help make these estimates more accurate, more realistic as far as time schedules are. And that's the functionality that we're kind of fine tuning right now as we're getting ready for beta testing.
So I want to sort of reference the GIF that we have up here, which I feel, and I think, obviously you feel Otherwise, you wouldn't have created it. But to me, it makes the strongest statement about what GMS is trying to realize and what parts of any project, and in this case, maybe we're going to look a little deeper into roofing projects, residential roofing projects. How does what your tool's doing, from an estimation to a scheduling to a delegation and analytics, if you could just describe a little bit about how this GIF works and what that little green arrow is really meaning.
Gotcha. So I know you're referencing the green arrow that's backtracking. So I'll draw everybody's attention to what Steph wants to highlight. But again, I'm going to just take a step back and tell you what you're looking at here is really the flow of almost any ERP, which is an enterprise resource planning system. It allows you to do estimating. It allows you to do scheduling. Delegation is really kind of a component of scheduling. So you've got your Gantt chart. And what you do with that Gantt chart is you delegate each step to a particular resource. So we'll kind of dive a little bit more deeper into that. But what ERPs are missing and what ultimately led us on the path that's gotten us to where we're at today is that blue piece, the analytics. This is where the artificial intelligence, the machine learning, and we use over 6 different types of AI. So it isn't just, one specific algorithm or formula, but this is the piece that a lot of the ERPs are missing. You've got your estimate, and then you've got your final project, your completed project data, but those are never really connected and brought full circle. You have to manually print out reports, and then you have to take from those reports the information necessary to improve your next estimate or your next schedule. And if you don't actually take the time to identify what was wrong with that estimate versus how the project actually completed and update your databases, there's a high likelihood that you're going to reproduce a similar project and you're going to walk away with a similar outcome. The GMS bridges that gap with the analytics, learning from every completed project. And it looks like there's one piece missing here, which would be the accounting piece. But in reality, the accounting piece is overarching. You can't do any one of these without taking the financial costs that are associated with them and navigate a job, because there isn't a thing within estimating, scheduling, or delegation that doesn't cost time and money. And we want to be tracking that information and utilizing it to improve the next estimate and the next project. So kind of walking us through this from start to finish, everybody wants to create an estimate. And a lot of times you're using, again, referencing back to the beginning of our conversation, possibly some historical information to help you build out that estimate. Or you already have used that information to kind of identify what your pricing is, to produce, this many square of tear off, or this many square of install, or this many square of underlayment. It's, this is the material that's associated, and then this is the labor cost that's associated with it. You're probably putting a margin on top of that. Some of you are putting 2. You've got your net margin, which covers your overhead costs, your gross margin, which is ultimately your profit. And then from there, your estimators can go ahead and rock and roll. What the GMS does is, with the analytics, it doesn't just build out the estimate that you see there in the yellow circle. It simultaneously builds out the schedule. And the way it's able to do that is the GMS doesn't just look at financials. It's also looking at every historical Gantt chart associated with these projects that match the criteria that you're considering re-estimating or reproducing. So the GMS uses those analytics to forecast an estimate, forecast a schedule, and then it kind of stays in that cycle until the consumer decides, yes, I want to move forward with that project. Once they move forward with that project and they sign digitally and they make the down payment or whatever your payment terms are, it then moves into the delegation process, which is that green dot on the very bottom, and it has another green arrow that's popping out of that. What's happening is now your Gantt chart is live, and all the things that need to be done for this project are delegated to your W-2 employees, your 1099 subcontractors, your vendors, whether it be material delivery, let's say trash removal, porta potty delivery and removal. That type of stuff is all delegated. And based on people's clock in and outs, acceptance, counteroffers, or declines, the GMS feeds that back and re-optimizes the schedule. So
and that's what the green arrow means, right? The backward green arrow is the constant collection of this data that feeds back on itself. And I'm going to use a term to course correct any of the scheduling, any of the estimations that were off, and then turns around and redelegates it. And therefore, your analytics keep changing as the realities of the project set in. Is that fair?
Yeah, you got a really good description of it. Most people are familiar with the GPS analogy when you go off track and it recalculates route. That backwards arrow is recalculating route. It's continuously re-optimizing your schedule and then redelegating essentially what path it is that you need to go. Everybody within your organization needs to go to maximize your returns and minimize the amount of time it takes to produce that project. Once a project is completed and we're no longer going through that feedback loop, that's when the new completed project data goes into the analytics stage again, and it's available for the next estimate and for the next schedule.
So I want to try and contextualize today's live stream so that we are really doing a couple of things here. First off, Tommy is looking for beta testers, and he has decided to initially pursue residential roofers. So I want to sort of break down, I'll say, the 6 core areas that your average residential roofer is looking for. And then Tommy can talk about how that sort of data would be intaken into the system. But with that, Tommy, also, what do we want the beta testers to be providing us with? What do you need from them that could make this a symbiotic relationship? And also, I want you to let them know that this is free of cost to them, and you know, the sort of what's in it for them. So maybe we'll start with you sort of set the table for what you're looking for in the way of beta testers and what you hope to help the industry with by beta testing at this point.
Okay. So I don't know if I understood the very beginning of the question, which you had stated were the 6 core areas.
Yeah, so we'll talk about the initial consultation and estimation that obviously any roofer goes through. So using digital measurements and cost, you know, the estimates. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer in any construction project. And then the project planning and the scheduling. Again, the delegation of tasks. I mean, to me, it fits, you know, somewhat beautifully into your GIF. So the delegation of tasks, the automating of the delegation of those tasks through the task management tools. So I just want to sort of try and paint a picture for those watching of if they were to consider being a beta tester for GMS, what might that look like for their roofing projects? And then the 4th one is project execution and the monitoring. So that's, you know, I think still in the delegation circle. And then, of course, the project completion and the reporting, which starts to go into the analytics. So I just, you know, if we can just sort of think in terms of your average roofing project, what do you hope to offer somebody participating in the beta test?
I'm glad we're starting with that because that is the big question. Why should I do this? And, you know, the direct answer to that is, I think I said it in our last call, that there's this age-old saying that if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get to where you've always gotten. And that's not true. Actually, if you always do what you've always done, you're going to be falling behind because everybody else is constantly trying to improve upon their systems and their processes to be more efficient. So even if you're staying in the same place, your competition and everybody else is forging ahead as fast as they possibly can. So by participating with us, this is your step to stay not only with your competition, but in a lot of cases, when we're bringing new technologies like this to the market, allowing you to get ahead of your competition. Now, this is a super important time to get involved, and here's why. Data is a funny thing because data actually compounds. It continuously builds on top of itself. So historically, where if you didn't do something at the same time, it isn't like you didn't have the chance to try it again at a later date. With data, if you start capturing your data in a mineable format where it can actually provide actionable solutions for your business, if you start doing that after your competition, you will always be behind your competition, because your competition that started ahead of you, they're already going to have more data. They're going to have more optimized estimates, outputs, and they're also going to be farther down the curve of not only learning the technology, but improving that technology to fit their needs. So it's super important that you recognize that this isn't kind of, hey, I can pick it up later. It's like trying to say, now I see what Amazon is doing and now I'm going to start competing with them, when they've already built out, they know what everybody wants. They know when they're logging in, they're listening to what it is that you're even talking about to populate those ads at the time that's right for you. And now they've got the distribution network to go ahead and send it out. And even companies that have been in this retail space longer than Amazon, we'll just use Walmart as an example. They're still behind Amazon in their ability to satisfy customers' needs in the way that Amazon has been able to do it. And these guys have been around, they have money, they have the resources, but they weren't capturing the data the way that Amazon was to improve the customer experience. So this is why you want to get involved with us. How do we make this symbiotic? Ultimately, you will have autonomously optimized schedules. A lot of us contractors, we're paying for somebody to manage our schedules for us. Associated with that is a salary and the human element. The only reason I bring in the human element is because the mind wasn't made for storage. It was made for creativity. So the human mind only has the ability to recall so much, but technology, it doesn't have feelings or emotions. You tell it to mine a database for projects that match this criteria, and it'll go as far back as you have information. So if you're building out an estimate and you're referencing, 3, or let's say you got super sophisticated memory and individuals, you're pulling 6 to 10 projects out, the GMS is able to consider hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of projects. Using that information to optimize your schedules, using that information to optimize your estimates. This will, over time, eliminate the need for paying that salary, and you'll have better solutions. Now, that doesn't mean that people are going to be losing their jobs. These people are very skilled people, and they still you'll be able to transition them into different roles within your organizations, but you're ultimately going to be able to pay less, get a better outcome that's more profitable, that takes less time, and provides a greater satisfaction from the customer side of it. On our end, here's what we take away from that. We're launching a product that's called an MVP, which means it's a minimum viable product. The product is functioning, it's usable, but it's really kind of at the bare bones. And we need to get feedback from everybody to know what is working, what isn't working. Not only the bugs, hopefully we've already tested and got a lot of those bugs out of there, but for feedback from you to say, hey, this works, I like this, or this doesn't work, can you remove it? Or, hey, this is missing, and we need that in order for us to, more easily get a customer from their initial estimate all the way through their final payment. And we need that information to make sure that, what we're building isn't going to be another one of those products where contractors go around and say, well, this was obviously built by people who aren't out in the field. We want the GMS to be built by people like me and you that have been out in the field doing this type of work, that truly understands what the industry is navigating, so we can use that information and provide a solution that accommodates those needs. So that's another unique opportunity here is essentially at no cost to you. You will have a full development team that's going to be learning from you, telling them what it is that we're missing, needs to be improved on, so that way you can streamline your business for less money and generate more profits.
And so you're going to begin looking for beta testers, you said, in the September time frame. Is that correct?
Yep, we'd like to start. Now, we've only got a limited amount of spots. We're going to be working with less than 10 contractors, but they're not all going to jump on at the same time. We are going to very specifically select 2 to start with. And then after the first 30 days, we'll start bringing on the next one in a little bit more frequent increments. But we don't want to get everybody on and not be able to solve or answer the requests and the needs in the time frame that you should expect. So we're going to work intimately with the first couple of beta testers, and then we'll start broadening that. And then once we have 9 to 10 contractors where they're running customers through start to finish seamlessly, that will conclude our beta testing. But it won't end there for our beta testers. Our beta testers will get a continued lifetime discount for the GMS should they decide to become a subscriber. And this will be a substantial money savings, because as we're capturing data, as we're optimizing outputs, as we're generating the value that everybody's expecting, the cost is going to go up as a byproduct, and you'll be able to avoid that.
And do you have any hard numbers right now in terms of what you expect that cost to be? You don't necessarily have to share it today, but I'm just, when they would be onboarded. And I want to talk a little bit about what that ideal model looks like for you, because obviously there's all different shapes and sizes of residential roofing contractors. What are you ideally looking for? And what would you expect the first couple of weeks of this beta testing experience to look like?
So great questions. And I'll just start with, specialty contractors or residential contractors. We're looking in the ballpark of about $650 per month. We're not going to be charging per seat. We're not going to be charging for, if you get the scheduling, it's this much. And if you get the estimation, it's this month. It's going to all be included in one price. That price will adjust, but it's not going to be how many projects you run through or how much, how much revenue you're generating. It's really going to be based on the bandwidth that we're paying for to provide the service to you, as well as the amount of storage that you're utilizing. And we'll just tier it that way and make sure that it's extremely competitive. Our objective is to actually be charging less than the competition and providing more. So our focus is really in providing the solutions, and over time, similar to Facebook, where they didn't have any type of a model for generating revenue. But once they had the data that they were able to use to, unfortunately help the advertising industry bombard us. Now, I'm not on Facebook, but for those of you that are, we're going to be following a similar model where we're not trying to get our revenue up front. We're trying to provide the service. We just want to make sure that our costs are covered. So that way everybody's getting the user experience that you would expect when you're subscribing to ERP. When we move into the commercial realm, it'll be higher. And that, again, is going to end up being tiered based on those same factors. It's not per seat. It's not going to be a la carte. It's going to be the whole program. And we're looking at a starting point of about $19.50 per month.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that should help our audience a lot in terms of, coming on board. Now, in terms of the kind of residential roofing company that you're looking at, are you looking for a mix of subcontractors and people that are already self-performing? Can it be, a roofing contractor that, is, does it himself and then hires people externally like the subs, or what's that model look like for you ideally?
Great question. We'd like to stay with specialty contractors for our beta testing, which would be, ideally focused in on one particular trade, which is why we selected roofing. Now, we realize that a lot of roofing contractors also offer siding, gutters, and some of them offer windows as well. We are working with window manufacturers to get some of that additional functionality ready to rock and roll. But for beta, we'd like to limit it to roofers ideally. If you have siding and gutters, we're willing to consider you. And the other question that you had is, are they self-performing or are they subbing it out? probably for our first couple of contractors that we'll select, we'll be focusing more on the self-performing, but that doesn't disqualify you from beta testing if you are subbing out the roofing work, but you're only providing the roofing as a service. That brings you into the running to be eligible to not only get to use it for free, teach us on how it is that you want the product to function for your business, and then walk away with the lifetime discount that comes with, essentially partnering with us.
Absolutely. And so that partnering means, as you said, that they would have a discount down the road. And how long do you anticipate, this beta test lasting? What kind of time commitment is needed? And do you expect them to have a project on the go? At what insertion point would be best for them to become a beta tester?
So we'll start with, we'd like to be wrapped up with beta testing in approximately a 90-day period. So if you're in the first wave, it'll be a longer period. If you're in the later wave, it may not be the full 90 days. What's a good entry point is, we want to essentially really start from the beginning. So when somebody requests an estimate, that's how you're going to want to start migrating any new customers into the GMS. And ideally, as we'll do a demo, by applying to be a beta tester doesn't commit you to us in any way. We'll do a one-on-one demo, start showing you all of that functionality, what the steps are to get through that onboarding process and start migrating customers into the product. And then you still have a decision to say, hey, thanks for considering us, but this isn't the right fit for us. But the objective is essentially have the GMS start learning, and we want to start learning at the estimating point. So as soon as a customer requests an estimate, that's a great person to input into the GMS. If you have historical data that the GMS is able to extract and build out an estimate and schedule for you, fantastic. If you don't, that's okay too. We're going to train the GMS to go ahead and build out that estimate and that schedule, which is super exciting because once that customer signs and the schedule is delegated and then the product is actually produced or the roof is built or replaced, whatever it is, the service that you're providing, you now have your first two data points. What it is that you told the GMS, how you want your roofing project to go through the GMS, and then what it actually took to get that roofing project produced. And so the next time you create an estimate, the GMS will be pulling from that information to start automating and improving upon both estimating and schedules. Now, not any roof is the same. So if you have wildly different roofs, the GMS may come around and ask you questions again, hey, how would you produce this roof? So that's the starting point that we're looking for. You also asked, what is it that they can expect over those first 2 weeks? The first 2 weeks, depending on how many projects it is that they're selling and they're moving in, it's going to be, as an ERP, a lot of onboarding and training and setting up, which again is no cost to you, but essentially we're going to be training everybody within your organization because roofing projects don't just start from the time that you actually show up to the customer's property. The way the GMS looks at it, roofing projects start from the time of estimate. Once that estimate is accepted, there's a lot of predecessing steps that have to take place, from ordering permits, ordering materials. If you've got electrical hazards or these types of things, they parking challenges, they need to be accommodated for prior to actually everybody showing up and realizing, hey, one, we have no place to park. Two, we can't even lift these materials onto the roof because we have power lines in place. So for us, those tasks are already starting to get delegated from that customer's request, which means that you not only have your salesperson involved, you've got administrators involved, you've got your accounting involved, and then you have your field workers, your foremen, and your crew. So we're going to be working with all of them to help them migrate project from start to finish and learning from that. So that's what the first couple of weeks are going to be looking like.
So I want to segue into the realities here of construction and sometimes how difficult it is to get all team members on the same page, which I think is, it's prudent to be starting this beta test as I'll say, slow down a little bit in September from the peak period of building time in the summer for construction, and how we can be onboarding these people in a very strategic way. I would imagine, and perhaps you can explain to the audience better, but if we're going to talk about estimation and scheduling, we're sort of taking perhaps two groups to start with, to onboard, to know exactly how many people would be pulled off of their other work, so to speak, to have to give this time to be onboarded. I think it's really important to sort of walk through that, what that is. And I also want to say to the audience, Tommy and I will be doing a demo next week, and as we wrap up the series for GMS, of actually what an example of the transformation will be. So, but Tommy, if you can first of all address, if you're going to onboard a team of people, that is resources from the field and from the back office for that matter. So how do you anticipate that being transitioned?
Well, you said the word slow down. Onboarding the GMS is going to be no different than onboarding a new individual within your organization. So yes, there is going to be some slowdown, and there's frustration with that because we're thinking to ourselves, man, if I just did this myself, it'd already be done, and now I have to bring this person up to speed. To minimize that slowdown, though, first thing we're going to do is have the GMS ultimately set up by the owners or by whoever it is that the owner appoints, to make sure that the GMS understands how it is that your organization is structured. First off, it needs to know all the employees, what it is that they're qualified to do. And you ultimately will rank them and say, these are my most proficient guys. And over time, the GMS will learn who, in fact, is the most proficient. And sometimes that changes either with relation to actual weather. And sometimes it's just the season of that person's life is in, where things are going really well. So they're very reliable and proficient. And then sometimes things happen and they're a little bit down, and their production is a reflection of and the GMS is tracking that information. So we're not only going to be setting up your employees, we're going to be setting up, who it is that your subcontractors are, who it is that your vendors are in a similar format. We're going to be setting up who it is that your material distributors are. You're going to be putting in pricing, the same steps that you have to take with any existing ERP. And then once we have that information, now we can start working with the first division within your organization, which is essentially estimating. And, so we don't have to train everybody at the exact same time. We'll start training as we move each customer through the department. So you've got your estimating, the people who are doing the takeoffs, who are meeting with the customers, who are doing the ordering, is going to be the first group that we're going to be working with. And then as it moves, it becomes a sale, the next steps and who it is that you have appointed to go ahead and start making sure that those permits are ordered, that the safety requirements are in place, and everything necessary to, it's kind of like pre-production to get that project ready for production. And so these are the teams that we'll be working with. And then it'll inevitably migrate out into the field. And then from the field, it'll come back to the shop. And, there'll be some financial things that need to be wrapped up, and who it is that you have delegated. Maybe your administrator is ordering those final warranties and getting all that information. And there are sometimes people are wearing multiple hats, and they're going to be doing the accounting and that type of stuff too. And then once that project is completed, we've slowly trained everybody on it. We have tried to simplify how it is that everybody's going to understand what their roles are. And I don't know if this is a good time to pop up. I did share a picture with you, the GMS GPS Gantt.
Sure.
But the GMS is coincidentally very close to the acronym of GPS. And we want our contractors and their employees to have a similar experience where we're not overwhelmed by everything that has to be done, and not just by one project, by a whole slew of projects, and then projects that haven't even sold or projects that have been completed. We know that these punch lists, regardless of where that customer is in that pipeline, can be daunting. And what we just simply try and do is share with you one step that you should be working.
Froze, Tommy.
I froze?
Yeah. Just for a minute, as long as you're back. Do you want to bring up your Gantt chart and I'll take this one down?
Sure. Let's see. So let's do share. It says, so present, share screen, and share. So what we're doing is translating the Gantt chart into a similar GPS type function where it's essentially delegating all these tasks. And this is a mobile device. So this individual is clocked in, and what they're supposed to be doing on this particular date is the first step is they're supposed to be driving to the job site. And this particular contractor is paying for that. It kind of maps out that they have an hour to drive to that job site if it takes longer or if it takes shorter. Just like your GPS identifies, hey, we are not where we're supposed to be. This is where that feedback loop, that green arrow that Stephanie was pointing out, it's recalculating route and recognizing that this individual has not completed this task in the time frame that they're supposed to. And it's identifying, okay, what other methods or roads can we take to still get to our destination with the least amount of disruption? And roads in the construction industry could be individuals, it can be subcontractors or a third-party vendor. And the GMS is looking at who it is that you set up that's capable of accomplishing the task at hand. That's within that Gantt chart. Are they available? And with the least amount of disruption, how can we shift things around to keep projects on course? Now, when the GMS is doing this, is it's taking into consideration not just the project that's taking place, but it's also taking into consideration the projects that are being produced simultaneously and scheduled next. So imagine a human being saying, hey, I'm going to move this resource from this step, and I'm going to put them over here on another project. The GMS is actually able to forecast what the implication is, both in time and finances, over hundreds of thousands of different scenarios, and it's able to select this is in fact the most mathematically effective route to go with the least amount of impact to our subscribing contractor and the customers that they're serving. Not just the customer who we're having the challenge with, but all the customers that are expecting these shared resources to come and complete those projects as well. The neat thing, and I'm going to jump back to that last image that we had. So I'm going to stop sharing.
I need to ask you a clarifying question though. So you've got this, and it's compared more to a GPS. Is that for comparison purposes, or what part of that GIF that you're showing does this part of it looks like it's part of the mobile app? How does it apply, and where does it apply? Is it in all of these quadrants?
So it is really within all the quadrants, because if you're a salesperson, it is mapping out, the most effective way for you to navigate the tasks that you have for that day. If you're, in administration or management, but it's really coming from this delegation piece. And that's, again, where that feedback arrow is once it's delegated, it's delegated. Now you can still look at it in a Gantt chart format. You can look at it in any variety of formats. But what we're trying to do is not overwhelm the individuals on what it is that they have to do and look at all the different projects and all the different tasks that are associated with the projects. The GMS is saying this of all of those tasks is the one that you should be working on right now. And then I already left that screen, but you can click complete task. And as soon as you complete that task, the GMS is now learning. So that information will inevitably go into analytics to say, hey, we said it was supposed to take an hour's worth of travel, but when we're traveling to that zip code, it's actually only taking 45 minutes. So the next time an estimate is being procured in that same, similar region or township, the GMS is able to say, no, it doesn't take an hour to travel there. It only takes 45 minutes. It's using that information, whether it's travel time, whether it's ordering permits, whether it's installing a roof, whether it's doing a tear off. You go ahead and you put in how long it should take, and the GMS is able to capture how long it's actually taking. And then it's bringing that information full circle to the analytics for future estimates and schedules, but it's also backtracking it mid-project and recognizing, hey, we're ahead of schedule. We need to push everything up 15 minutes, or what is the next best alternative to, again, maximize profits and minimize the amount of time it takes to produce these projects. And it considers all of those options. And without anybody even knowing it, the next task that they're supposed to be doing, or the next turn that you're supposed to be taking, using the GPS analogy, can change without you being aware of it, because it's re-optimized the schedule and it's taken another resource to complete the next task that was assigned to you, and it's moving you to a task that's going to allow these jobs to get completed faster with the least amount of disruption.
Okay, so now that we've sort of laid it out, what is involved in beta testing, I think fundamentally we've explained well what the Graceful Management System is about. Again, I think that this GIF works magic to describe how we're really breaking down the data that's inputted, and then most importantly, how it's course correcting what is inputted into the system to improve on your projects as you go. Now that we understand that, I want to let the audience know that we will be doing some kinds of demos next week, which you will actually see some transition and transformation from estimating to scheduling to delegating to analytics. Sort of keep that in mind if you're out there and you're thinking that maybe you'd like to try to be a beta tester for GMS and work with Tommy on, your next iteration of, quite frankly, producing better outcomes for yourself, for your projects, for your subs, and anybody involved in the project. I don't really want to overstate AI, because everybody and their mother talks about it, but it's not going away. These algorithms, however they're applied, are not going away. And this is now construction's opportunity to get involved with companies like Graceful Management Systems that is welcoming you to help to build the future of these applications. So if you want a beta test, you can contact Tommy directly, or you can connect with Intelligent Construction Opportunities, as I am working with Tommy to make sure that in this case, residential roofers are aware of this opportunity. And also, as we wind up today's live stream, if you in fact want to show off your technology, you can contact Intelligent Construction Opportunities at info@intelops.com, or again, DM me directly on LinkedIn if you just want to have a chat about what's involved, what kinds of services Intelligent Construction Opportunities offers vendors like Tommy, and we can work together to bring your features, your benefits, your whatever out to the construction community, so everybody has a chance to have the right tech for their particular projects. And with that, I want to thank Tommy for taking his time today. And I think, Tommy, you shared a lot of great information. I think we got into, the meat and potatoes of what it means to be a beta tester. How are you feeling?
I'm thankful for the opportunity. And, if I could wrap it up with a bow, I know that a lot of us went into owning these businesses because we wanted some freedom, some flexibility, and the opportunities that the American dream affords. And we've learned in the construction industry that a lot of times the businesses end up owning us because of all the things that are involved to get customer after customer's requests satisfied. Thanks to the technologies that are out there, and I'm not just going to tote us. I appreciate what Stephanie is doing. She's helping identify your needs, and she's matching you with the programs that she's demoed herself and evaluated and is determined is a good fit for your needs. So definitely reach out to her as a resource. But these are tools that can help you start owning your business rather than the business start owning you, the business owning you. So don't be reluctant. I encourage you, if it's not something you're interested in, learn about it, because it will change the future, not only of your business, but if you're planning on handing that off to kids or selling it, you're going to have to be competitive. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is it's going to be harder to hand off a business that is fully dependent on you when your competition is learning a way to get the business producing for you. rather than the other way around. So check that stuff out. Reach out to me directly. We also have a link on our website if you want to apply for beta testing, or if you have any additional questions. If we can't solve your problem, we'll also connect with Stephanie and find a product that does.
And I also just want to put a capper on it. I think it's so important. You had opened at the beginning of today's live stream talking about data. And I think everybody just has to perhaps stop thinking about data in relation to a computer, but understand that it doesn't matter how old the business. Henry Ford had data. He just didn't have a place to store and distribute and implement and reuse it. And even then, he still was able to come up with some pretty mighty mainstays of all business today, not the least of which was the production line. But again, everybody has data. Everybody has information. And that's just a way to keep your business more organized, more nimble, more able to use these information points and apply them within your internal teams and any external subs you work with moving forward. And that's all this really is an opportunity in this case for residential roofers to work with Tommy to make your information and data work better for your company. Yes. And with that, we'll call a wrap.
Thank you all.
Thank you. And we'll see you next week here with Tommy as we actually are going to take these quadrants and we're going to break them open so you can see a little bit of transformation. And again, if you want a beta test, you can contact me directly or contact Tommy. There's his email, and I will make sure that any registrants thus far are equipped with the email so they can contact Tommy directly. And with that, we'll call it a wrap.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.